This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, bringing you a special episode, number 25, an Unscheduled Pit Stop. Maybe that'll be the name of it.
Unscheduled Pit Stop. That's right.
This Saturday, November 20th. We're not there yet. November 14th, 2015, and I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. And here, as always, with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's happening, man?
That's right. It's 6 o'clock on the East Coast on a Saturday evening. I think most folks are probably finishing up watching a football game.
Or two or three.
Or four. We've actually got one on that's directly in my line of sight, so I'm sure at some point I will be distracted by it.
Good news is the Xfinity race just finished, so we do have one less distraction to deal with.
We do have some breaking news. Breaking news. We've got breaking news. Kyle Busch won an Xfinity race. That never happens.
That's not really breaking news, Andrew.
It certainly shouldn't surprise anybody, but I guarantee you it'll have some folks up in arms about how often that happens.
That's true. What you drinking today?
Today I've got Jim Beam White Label and Sprite Zero.
Very nice.
How about you?
I have. I think
have an on deck. Well done.
I do have an on deck, but I think maybe my new thing, because I have 1,000 koozies. I'm going to talk about my koozies more because I do have a Sweetwater IPA.
Well, show the fans the koozie.
There it is. And the koozie is back when we had some season tickets to the Thrashers.
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey, yep. Yeah. Here in Atlanta, believe it or not. I think it's like 65 degrees today on November 14th.
For sure.
But
for sure.
It's kind of squishy and has the logo on it, has like arms coming down the side. It's like a jersey is what it is, and has the gloves and everything. So pretty cool koozie. And on deck I've got, the old standby, Beam Black and Coca-Cola, as is tradition. I think one thing that folks on Periscope maybe can see, but we are celebrating hard in Movember.
That's right. We've got we've reached the portion of the month where it's handlebar, Fu Manchu, whatever you want to call it. So we're both kind of rocking that.
We usually start the month by just growing it out. A few weeks later, cut it into the Fu Man, and then once it's time for Thanksgiving, that's really the chop it off and go straight mow.
Right. Well, I think this happens a lot in conversation when Movember comes up. People say, I thought it was no shave November, or I thought you were supposed to shave clean on November 1, and then whatever you end up with at the end of the month is what you have. And for me, it's do whatever you want. There aren't any rules, but for sure be aware, you men out there, that your health is just as important as the awareness we celebrate in October. And for sure, get yourself a prostate exam earlier than you think you should. And so that's what the whole Movember thing is about men's health awareness. And I actually started a team this year. I donated $50, and one of our friends donated $50.
That's excellent.
So I'll tweet out the address to that from the podcast handle. So if anybody else wants to donate, that'd be fun. If you don't, that's fine. This isn't a campaign as much as just I'm doing it for fun. I need a charity this year, so that's my charity.
So you hear these media types talk about their crazy schedules and everything, and I felt like a media type this week. I went to New York on Monday for my work, which is obviously not NASCAR related, not media related. Maybe someday.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
Came back on Thursday afternoon, took my luggage, went straight to the bar so we could pregame for the Georgia Tech-Virginia Tech football game.
That's right.
And go watch our team lose. It was not due to a lack of cheering, so if my voice cracks up even 2 days later, I was having issues this morning for that matter.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, we take being sports fans very seriously. I took a 6 a.m. flight from Wisconsin a couple of years ago and dragged my suitcase from the train station all the way to our tailgate spot so that we could go ahead and make sure we
You came back from Germany one time, didn't you?
Due diligence. No, that was actually from Neenah.
Okay, that was up Wisconsin. Yeah. So we have a couple shout-outs today, so let's go ahead and pull it, and maybe I'll hit it right this time. It was kind of low, but it was there.
Well, hopefully it won't bust anybody's eardrums this week.
We'll see. So 2 shout-outs. Number 1, our faithful producer, Serena. She's on the Periscope right now watching, I think. And she's at a bar in Orlando right now. Unfortunately, her grandfather passed away, so we wish her family all the best. And Larry is her father is a listener of the podcast, so shout out to him as well. They are down in Orlando. She decided to take a day early and make the best of it. So I dropped her off at the airport at 2 o'clock or so. Now it's 6 o'clock.
4 hours ago.
yeah, she's down there now. But tomorrow she's going to be at Disney World by herself, just having a good old time.
Hey, props to you. Props for making a not so good situation a better one. I like the improvisation. I can appreciate that.
That's straight up. That's this family. That's how.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I work. That's how I think all of us really do. The same sort of improvisation that has you bringing your bag to the bar, bringing your luggage to the bar so you can pregame for the Georgia Tech Virginia Tech game.
Right. Don't let the little things get in the way of the things that you want to do. And for sure, if you don't have any control over where or when you have to be somewhere and there's something nearby for you to do that you really like, you need to take advantage of that.
Second shout out for today, the Liberators. We're going to a concert tonight. So the Liberators are playing at Smith's Old Bar here in Atlanta. They consist of two guys who I work with. One of them, the COO of the Americas part of our company. I don't exactly remember his whole title and everything, but Eric Levitan, and then Jeff Nagel, who's in our NASCAR pool sometimes when he decides to actually change his drivers. He's a drummer and lead singer. He's doing the Phil Collins style deal. So we're going to go see them tonight. They just released their first album, and this is their release party.
Hey, that's pretty cool. I got to thank Rusty for really getting me off the couch this year and dragging me out to see some live music. I've discovered that I enjoy it even when I don't know what the music is. So on that same token of entertainment, we got a long in advance announcement to make about something we're going to do in January.
True. January 15th, Joe Rogan is coming to, is it the Tabernacle? Tabernacle, and we're going to go see him. If you want to see the PETM guys at that venue, which who cares because Joe Rogan is there.
Right.
Not like
Joe
we
Rogan
deserve to be in the same conversation.
Probably Brian Redband. I don't know who all he'll drag with him, but it's going to be funny because that's what Joe does. Joe does funny.
He does very funny, and his podcast is among the top on iTunes.
I think it's number one.
It could be number one.
I think he has the number one podcast.
Yeah, that thing is fantastic. So you want to talk about NASCAR?
Let's talk about some NASCAR.
This is the racing podcast, so let's do it. What are we, about 7.5 minutes in?
We're 7.5 minutes in, and we've whittled our way down to our collective group is the only ones following on Periscope, which is fine.
That's what happens. So I think, there hadn't been a ton of news this week, so we can start with some news. The number 9 car is going to have a new driver next year. We don't know who yet, but we know who it's not.
We definitely know that it's not Sam Hornish Jr., which kind of sucks, but, the performance isn't there. I don't know that that's necessarily Sam Hornish's problem.
It's a shame. I was, I liked Ambrose in the car. If you go back, Casey, Bill Elliott, whoever, but I like Ambrose in the car. Sam Hornish Jr. would fill in every once in a while, and I really liked when I was always rooting for him when he was in there. Then he gets the full ride, and like you said, the performance isn't necessarily there. You can point fingers either way, but it just sounds like he's not coming back. Does he have any prospects?
I think this talkers that be, or whatever, I'm fumbling the phrase, but it sounds like people expect him to be in an Indy car next year.
Okay. He came from Indy, didn't he?
He was the best thing there was at Indy, which is why he came to NASCAR.
Exactly. There's some talk about Regan Smith maybe filling that in. Of course, Regan is somewhat in the talks for the Xfinity Championship this year. We just saw the end of this race, so that's probably a long shot, but he's up there.
He's 4th in points. It's not impossible, but it's certainly a long shot. But it's a bummer because, I think everybody likes Regan Smith. Mm-hmm. You can tell he's got passion. He's a good race car driver. He doesn't have a personal sponsor, and that is a big part of this sport. Allgaier is coming in. He's got personal sponsorship, as does Elliott Sadler, who's coming in to the JRM fold.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. I hope somebody realizes that Regan's, somebody they want to employ to drive their car.
Yeah, he's got the talent. They got to market him maybe a bit better. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if it was him that brought on the Oscar Blues sponsorship with the Denver connection when he was with Furniture Row.
That was cool.
That was the coolest thing that happened in NASCAR to me, from a sponsorship perspective, is to see a craft brew, especially the way we love craft brew.
I mean, we do the What You Drinking segment.
Yeah, we have a What You Drinking segment. Oftentimes it's some craft beverage, locally sourced typically, or regionally sourced. It was really cool to see Oscar Blues get into NASCAR, because that culture is not strongly infiltrated by NASCAR fans.
Right. I would say traditionally at this point, hipster culture.
It is fairly hipster for sure.
Yeah, and they're crossing over, which is really cool.
That's
and maybe
what we want.
Yep. Reaching out to more people, getting a little diverse. So this one, I don't know how to breach the topic. Sherwin and I are both members of the NASCAR Fan Council. We both took a questionnaire this week, and puzzlingly, at the very beginning of the questionnaire, the first question, which you're not supposed to talk about it, but the first question was, you're not supposed to talk about it. You must hit this I agree button this time, which means, there must be some stuff in this one. If we've already agreed to this, but they're saying once again, you need to agree again on top of what you already agreed to.
Right, and to get a little bit too nerdy, it's the first time there's ever been a radio button survey on the first page of the survey, where you had to click an option before you could move forward.
Right, so there must have been some stuff in it. I took the questionnaire, Sherwin took the questionnaire, we talked about it afterwards with each other, but have not talked to anyone else as per our agreement.
And when I say I agree to do something, that's what I'm going to do. So we're not going to talk about the contents of the survey as much as just the fact that somebody released the contents immediately.
Right.
What a jerk.
Right. Yeah. So there was a leak, and that leak, Jeff Gluck, I think, was the first to pick that up. Somebody emailed it to him. And so I'm just going to read off a few things off of Jeff Gluck's tweet here. I'm not going to talk about the content of what I put in there and what I rated and everything else and all the questions. But I think now that it's out there, it's something we can talk about because we're just reading Twitter now. And
you got to believe, and I think this is the rhetoric from Jeff was essentially NASCAR knew it was going to be leaked. They needed for it to be leaked to reach a wider audience than just the fan council. But then we get into that sticky place again where it's like NASCAR is trying to disguise their behavior or try to confuse people or get something done behind a curtain.
I think it's a good way
showing you something over here, but doing stuff over here.
Well, that could be true. I think it's a good. I think it's a smart move by NASCAR actually to put this out there and then say they can always hide behind. We were just throwing hypotheticals out there.
Right.
So let's start with the first hypothetical. So this is what Jeff Gluck posted here was the in regards to the championship format for the Xfinity Series. Of course, they're just traditional old school NASCAR with number of points collected over the season.
Right.
And interestingly, I would say we have a pretty darn good race right now for the championship, which over the last 2 or 3.
Yeah, once they basically eliminated the opportunity for a full-time Cup driver to come down and win the championship.
Yep.
Nobody's blowing this thing out of the water. They're tight races now. As you see, we're going to go to Homestead, just like we're going to go to Homestead with 4 Cup drivers with a chance to win by format. We're going to go to Homestead with 4 Xfinity drivers who are within the points arena to win. So it's hard to ask for a lot more than that.
Right, and you get your Game 7 moment, quote unquote, without having to falsify it.
Yeah, no artificiality to it at all.
Right. So the first thing, again, in this tweet that I read, it says, full-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series drivers would not be able to race in any of the NASCAR Xfinity Series races. That one is the first one. It's in bold on here. And I got to tell you, first off, I disagree with it for many reasons. We'll get into that in a minute. But second, I don't know how they can even have a series without the Cup drivers in it.
I'm going to be very frank with y'all. Those that are clamoring for Cup drivers to stay out of the other series, that's the fastest way for those series to not exist anymore. because the Cup drivers bring eyeballs and they bring dollar bills.
When I see that Casey Kane's going to be in an Xfinity race, I'm going to turn it on. You know, I don't care as much about Kyle Busch, but a lot of people do. I don't care as much about Brad Keselowski, but a lot of people do. You're getting a lot of these eyeballs like that.
Yeah.
I am willing to skip a race that has that's maybe a one-off somewhere. Actually, the one-offs I do like sometimes, unless they're going to be in Chicago and Cup's going to be like in Phoenix or something.
Usually it's Pocono, I think. Not
yeah,
to
Pocono.
Get too specific,
Yeah. So, and Chicago, Cup races at Chicago, that's fine. If they go to Milwaukee, I'd like to watch that. And all the road courses they did this year, that was really cool.
Yes.
But otherwise, what's going to be the draw, number one, for fans to be watching that? And number two, again, where are you going to get drivers for this series? Because it's not like these Cup guys are in there instead of somebody else.
Right. They're not taking anybody's spot. That's
exactly.
The thing that I think that's a misnomer. That they're there because if they're there, they're taking somebody else's chance to be in a good car. That is 100% false. A lot of times, these Xfinity car teams only exist because they have a Cup driver to drive that car.
Right, and in the pre-show, you gave me a perfect example.
Yeah. So I mean.
Brad Keselowski.
So Penske uses their number 22 Xfinity ride the way that I think is the best way you could use that ride. You put a championship caliber Cup driver in it to make sure that the team stays up with the pace. And then on opportunities to put in a Ryan Blaney, for instance, to get him some more experience, working with a team that's already up to par. Mm-hmm. They're already a race-winning team. So they already start with knowing how to win. Now they can teach the driver how to win. Like to me, that's the best way to do it. I don't have anything to follow that, but that's just, to me, I think Penske does it the right way.
Well, that's what keeps these things afloat too. You have your Cup driver that's keeping it afloat. You have your developing driver that's developing. As they should, and then maybe eventually, if this developer gets to a point where he can run the full ride, have full spot. That's another thing, full sponsorship.
Right.
You're going to have trouble getting Monster Energy in all however many 33 races.
Yeah, I think it's 33.
Yeah, 33 races.
31.
If Kyle Busch ain't going to drive it.
Right, and I mean, and also like you're seeing with Monster Energy, going to move up and be. A secondary sponsor on Kurt Busch's car all year and a primary on a few races, probably not going to have the money to sponsor that 54, which means they then had to go hunt for new sponsorship, which Kyle Busch probably can get. But the ideal situation is you have a 33 race schedule and you say, okay, well, we're going to put Kyle Busch, or we're going to put a combination of Brad Kay and Joey Logano in. They're gonna race for 20 races. Mm-hmm. Well, you will be willing to commit to a year's worth of sponsorship for 33 races if 20 of them are strong Cup guys, and they'll let us develop another driver underneath them. Yeah, and that's a tough sell. Discount Tire has bought in,
and you know that they're going to have a good car. Because they've got these drivers in it and they can put the money into it and everything. And hey, maybe this developing driver gets a win in your wrap, you know?
Yeah, in your wrap.
And that's huge.
And then gets him the confidence he needs to be a better driver. And I don't want to ignore the other teams that are doing this kind of thing too. The 20 team under the Gibbs fold is this same kind of team. Mm-hmm. Eric Jones has been in that car a lot. He's already pretty much solidified the fact that he can win. But Kenseth and Hamlin also drive that car. Mm-hmm. And I think Carl Edwards has done one race in that car. So they keep that car a winning car while also developing a younger driver. That's what Junior Motorsports has done at times with the 88 and the 5. Because they run the 7 and the 9 full time, but the 88 and the 5 don't always show up at the track. Mm-hmm. They're not always there.
So I guess in conclusion, for both sides of that coin, one is on the fan side. I'm just not as interested. But number two, on the logistics side, you know, if you're going to have a series, you're going to have to need some Cup guys. So I'd be interested. And we did have some ideas
Yeah, we've got our own ideas. I mean, I think independently we have ideas about how you would make it better, or at least make it kind of break up the thing so it's not like every single week we're talking about Kyle Busch. For me, my perspective is, so we already took the points away. So the Cup guys they're not going to be any more Cup guys win a championship in the Xfinity Series. That was a really good move. I thought that almost got us all the way to where we should be. The only other thing I might offer up as a suggestion would be, say a guy can only race 2 weeks in a row, and then he has to skip a race. Something like that. I mean, that's just a nebulous thought, but they have to be there, and they have to be there consistently, or you're not going to get butts in seats. You're not going to get eyeballs on the TV, especially not during the fall when it's college football. I mean, admittedly, we have the opportunity to miss up to 6 Xfinity races every fall because we have season tickets to Georgia Tech football.
Right.
And if those things don't align just right, then, I mean, the football takes precedence. The in-person event takes precedence over watching a AAA race. So
then it's a good segue into some of the next points as well. And what I would say is it's a series that's a development series in terms of drivers, but I think it should also be a development series for NASCAR.
It absolutely is for the teams. The guys over the wall. And
I mean for rules and everything. Let's try stuff out here.
That's a good point.
And promote it and see what happens. We used to do that. You remember when trucks, that was the first one to do, was it double file restarts?
Absolutely. First to do double file restart.
First to do green, white, checker.
First to do green, white, checker. I mean, I still think they're open to do that stuff. We just haven't seen it in a while.
So interestingly, I wonder if Trucks/Xfinity started with this whole chase grid format, if it would be more interesting to me right now than it is having thrown the Cup guys into it.
I wish that's what they'd done.
Right.
But when you realize, so here I did a little bit of research on that. And because of what we saw in the survey, I was thinking similar to Cup, where you have, like, they started with 10 and then it was 12 and then now it's 16. But if you look at who's 12th in points in the Xfinity Series, 350 points behind the leader. Does that guy really deserve a shot at a bracketed championship?
Well, so that's, again, a good segue into, once again, I'm reading bullet points off of something that's out there now. But the championship format in this case would be 12 drivers, 7 races, 6 of them determine who goes into the final race. So there's only 7 races.
That was the one that I didn't hate the most. Notice how I said that.
Yeah. So I think that's somewhat compelling. Have them have a mini playoff, if you will. Have it so that guys can make it there. Something interesting, though, you could have 4, 5, 6 winners and only 4 get to go.
Yeah, or you could have Cup guys win all 6 of those races.
Well,
I need to feed that fire too.
Well, no, this was part of this is part of the whole package. Is number 1, Cup drivers can't be in it, and then number 2, what we just said.
Well, yeah, and so the discussion that we had earlier when we were off camera and we weren't doing the podcast yet is that I said we need the Cup guys because we got to have the sponsorship and the eyeballs and all that stuff. Also, they're there to develop the team, right? They're there to push guys over the wall to be better, to make the crew chief better, all of it. Everybody, it's all a learning process because most teams promote from within when it comes to team members. And they promote from trucks to Xfinity to, I just whacked my mic. I hope that wasn't too loud. And what if the Cup guys could run and win the race and win owner's points for their owner, but the point structure, not just, they don't earn driver points. Only the Xfinity drivers earn driver points. Same with the trucks when they go down there too. But what if instead of saying if an Xfinity driver finishes 4th behind 3 Cup drivers, well, he only gets 4th place points, which is how you can end up with this situation where the 12th place driver is 350 points behind.
Yeah.
That would shrink significantly if you just took the Cup guys out and then awarded 1st, 2nd, 3rd points.
Yeah, let them have the money, but don't let them have the points.
Exactly.
So I just lied to you because now I just read the next line on here, and it had been a while since I took the survey. They do actually chunk it out. So after every 3 races, it goes 12 to 8 to 4. So
Yeah.
that's less compelling now in my vision. I wouldn't mind.
I'd
a
like to
little
see a
mini
6-race
playoff.
sample because I think what's going to happen is if you did that, we know who the guys are that are at the top of the board. They're running top 10 every week.
Mm-hmm.
That's Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Ty Dillon, Regan Smith,
Yep.
and one more I'm leaving out for whatever reason. I just can't remember. But, I mean, Suarez is in that same mix.
Suarez, yeah.
He's had a great year. So the biggest thing I'm always kind of thinking about in my head when people want to make rule changes, because it happens in all major sports, rule changes happen all the time. It's usually related to money and eyeballs, which eyeballs is money, so it's money and money. Is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm not super sure that the championship in the trucks and Xfinity is broken.
I agree with that. For the points that you brought up before, too. The 12th is 350 points out. I mean, we're talking about that's 10 races.
Yeah, it's 9 full races if you won all 9.
Right. So that's a huge gap there, and that gap's not going to get better because you don't let the Xfinity guy or don't let the Cup guys drive in Xfinity races either.
No, and the thing is that the other piece that people miss when, first of all, I don't think there's very many fans of NASCAR who only have an Xfinity driver as the guy they follow.
Sure. I mean,
So
friends and family.
That's a big piece of the puzzle, right? Second, golly, I got so distracted by excitement about that thought.
It was a good thought.
Yeah, I mean, it just people are fans of both. Like, you're definitely not watching on Saturday if you don't watch Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's just watching Saturday.
Right.
I mean, so I guess I struggle to understand why it's a problem. And here's where it is. Okay, we circle back. Brain is
The hamster's turning the
yeah,
wheels,
the blinders
gears
came
are
off.
going.
Yeah, the gears got a little greased up there. We're good to go. We want to see Xfinity drivers pass Cup guys in good Xfinity cars on the racetrack. That's how you know that guy's a race car driver.
Right.
That's how owners look and go, I got myself a race car driver.
Right. Well, then they're very shortly not going to be Xfinity drivers anymore, and they're going to be taking over the number 9 car that just vacated.
And that's the whole point. Like,
Yeah.
the whole point of – so a lot of guys in it that run trucks, y'all, don't ever make it anywhere past trucks. You know, I know Matt Crafton ran some Cup races. He may even run a full schedule. But the truck series is the place for him, kind of like Todd Bodine.
Right.
The truck, or Ron Hornaday is probably even better example.
Yep.
Those guys did race in higher levels, maybe even did full seasons in Cup, but they're home. They are winners and champions in trucks. The Xfinity Series is a place where those groups cross paths. Rising stars from trucks flow upward through the Xfinity Series, and retiring or aging Cup stars. Not Jeff Gordon,
Right.
but like a Mark Martin, for instance, they kind of go back the other direction
Mm-hmm.
because they really love to race, but like the intensity of week in and week out at the Cup level isn't as fun.
Well, and if you're in that Cup car, in that case, you are taking the seat away from somebody else because
Yes.
there are enough drivers to fill those cars.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Especially nowadays, we don't have any starting parkers. So,
Not really, not anymore. Maybe 1 or 2 at a Cup weekend, and maybe 4 or 5 in the Xfinity Series. But but for the most part, when they changed the pay structure, that all but eliminated the financial feasibility of starting and parking.
so we're entering the last, for at least trucks and Xfinity, we're going into our last race. Sherwin's getting a refill here.
Typically.
Yep. You'll hear his off-mic commentary.
Yeah, I'm probably going to drop ice on the floor.
Again, as usual. So we're entering the last race for trucks and Xfinity. We got one more race tomorrow for Cup until we enter our final race. So wanted to... I don't know if that was on purpose this time or not, but that was...
It was. I like the way it sounds.
It was good. So, wanted to talk to you about where we are with those guys. So where we're at with trucks, where we're at with Xfinity, and then, of course, we'll always talk about next week or the next race in the next week and everything for Cup. So, trucks. We had our Friday the 13th race at Phoenix, which lived up to its peril, if you will, with a couple of the guys. So, Timothy Peters wins a race. Jones and Crafton pretty much damage control most of the race.
Those two guys are running for the title.
Right. So Eric Jones, Matt Crafton running for the title. With 30 laps to go, they hit each other. Crafton took all the blame for that, which was very mature of him in terms of, I guess, what this means, I mean, we're talking about championships that we're running for, and for him to sort of raise his hand and say, that was my fault, I know, blah, blah, blah. Good for him. He took the worst of that and ended up finishing 23rd, about 20 laps down or so. Eric Jones, minor damage, came back with a top 10 finish. I think 9th is what I'd read.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought I saw 4th. But, yeah, either way, it did not ruin Eric Jones's day. Put Matt Crafton in a tough position to compete going to Homestead. I don't know what the point spread is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to have to be a weird day.
Yeah, it's a mathematically possible thing. It's just that it's out of his hands. He's got to win and then hope for stuff.
Right.
Which
so
you don't
when
want to
we
be
say something's mathematical, y'all, what we mean is just winning the race doesn't mean you're going to win the championship. He's got to, also...
He's got to win the race, and Eric Jones has to get taken out.
And that may be the thing that people are upset about with the point systems. Because in Cup, it's plain as day. When those 4 guys get there, if you win, you win.
Right. But if Goodyear gives you a crap tire and it blows and it takes out some important piece,
right there with you. or if there's,
and I'm specifically talking about Joey Logano last week,
right? Or I playing devil's advocate, I would say that had as much to do with them not getting practice time to make sure that their geometry was right.
That's true.
But I would flip on the other side these days about Goodyear is that they're too conservative. We don't get to see as good a racing because they're afraid of exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if we make too soft of a tire and we, the leader wrecks 50 laps into a 300-lap race, nobody wants that to happen to Jeff Gordon at Homestead.
Right. So we're seeing with the trucks probably going to be Eric Jones. Good for him. I'm glad for him. And he'll probably just be doing some parade laps most of the day to try to stay out of trouble.
You would think. I mean, I don't know that's – I'm not super sure that's in the driver's mind, but I think what has to be is I'm not going to take any chances. Like,
right.
I'm not just going to stick my nose in there because I think I'm faster. I'm going to, I'm going to manage my truck.
You're going to make
when
clean
that guy's
passes.
Truck falls off, I'll just go by him.
Right. You're going to make clean passes. You're going to make clean pit stops. You're
certainly not
going
to
be
be putting
the
the bumper to anybody.
Right. Exactly. Especially at Miami.
Right. Well, you don't see a lot of that there anyway. But
so Xfinity, I think, is a compelling race to watch, though. Buescher was 24 points ahead of Chase as of just prior to this race that we saw.
Yep.
I think he finished about 5 or 6 spots behind him. So
I think it's either 18 or 19.
18 or 19 points.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing. Chase Elliott, if you win the race, of course, bonus point. If you lead a bunch of laps, bonus point. You win the race, a whole boatload of points. Plus, is there a bonus in Xfinity between first and second that they still?
Yes, 3.
Yeah, okay. So another 3 there.
You can get 5 points over and above second.
Right.
Or 4 if the second place driver leads a lap.
Right. So that's a compelling race. If Buescher finishes, the 20,
15,
25th,
16, 17, and you do all those other things,
right,
then you win the championship.
So it's another one where stuff has to happen, but it's a more compelling race probably than trucks, although trucks is always a fun race, so you never know.
Well, you should definitely watch trucks if you don't have Friday night plans in 2 weeks. Or no, next Friday, excuse me. If you don't have plans, you should definitely watch it because it'll be a fun race. Trucks at 1.5 miles is just fun.
Yeah, and P.S., 6 more points to Ty Dillon, which is probably a closer margin now because Ty Dillon just finished 4th. and there was 1 point to Regan Smith after that. So
yeah, I mean,
it's a pretty
you got like I said,
tight deal.
We said earlier, you've got 4 guys that have a chance to win it going in, which is, I mean, it's a slightly different scenario than what we'll have with Cup on Sunday, but it's still 4 drivers eligible, or mathematically in the hunt.
Right. So I think we should move to Cup. And Cup, I'm actually going to play.
Hey, we picked up a couple eyeballs.
All right. What's
Thank you all for joining us.
Appreciate you.
I guess we finally got entertaining, maybe. I don't know.
I don't
know what that means.
Let's see. So I'm going to play The Mistakes We Made.
Dude's leg is still completely
it's still
up.
busted. And that came in through the audio feed here pretty loud. So sorry if we busted your eardrums there. You can turn us back up now. But mistakes we made. We said a playoff driver's going to win all the rest of the races. And sure enough, Jimmy Johnson steals the lead from I shouldn't say steals the win, but he had the faster car. Brad knew that he had the faster car. He tried to block a little bit. I think what happened, maybe a difference between Kenseth Logano back in, was it Kansas?
Kansas, yeah.
When Joey turned him. And this one was Brad let him have the position. He just said, golly, this guy's faster. I've blocked. And then he took his line away. I thought that was cool to watch, by the way, taking his line away and getting Jimmy's air messed up. And then that gave him 100 yards, and then Jimmy came back. And then on the next turn, he didn't take Jimmy's line, so Jimmy's door-to-door with him. Next thing you know, he takes his line again, and Jimmy's all messed up in the aero. That was kind of neat to see how he could control that. Of course, that's part of the issues that we've been describing, is if Brad's car was actually the faster car, he'd have been just gone.
Right.
But because of the whole aero thing. But eventually Jimmy was able to make the pass. It was a clean pass. Good on Jimmy. Good on Brad. Brad was not upset at the end of the race. He was just like, Jimmy had the faster car. What can I say? You can only hold him up so much. But he was faster on the top and faster on the bottom. So by the end of that run, it was like there's nothing you can do. You can take away his preferred line, but even his unpreferred line is better than yours.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I thought that was really cool, the thing that where I get a little bit, I'm not saying upset. Upset's not the right word, but all of the lauding that was done, that was given to Jimmy about that pass and how, that's how you make a clean pass, and it's like, just shut up with that stuff.
I mean, if you give me a rocket, I will find a way to make a pass.
His car they made the right adjustments. I think Brad was guilty. His team was guilty of, well, not guilty, but they fell into the trap of leading the entire race, and you tend not to adjust on a race car that's faster than everybody else. I think that's ultimately what happened, and that's just sort of part of it. And it happens, y'all. If you want to know, Brad led, I think, 93% of the race. He is not at the top of the list of a driver who's led the highest percentage of the laps and not won the race. It's actually DW. He ran almost 96% of a race at North Wilkesboro and didn't win it.
Wow.
And that probably would have been, North Wilkesboro probably would have been 500 laps, which means he led. What's the math on that, y'all?
96
480?
times 5.
480?
Yeah.
And didn't win. So, I mean, this kind of stuff happens. But, I mean, yeah, Brad did what he could. Once he discovered that wasn't enough, he got out of the way. Because for sure he doesn't want to get dumped.
No, he doesn't want to get dumped.
Potentially.
But truth is, I think he was in a win it or lose it situation last week, and he is this week too.
I agree.
And we'll get into that in a second, but you did give us a great holy bleep moment. Matter of fact, I'll play it just because we're low on sound effects today, so here it comes. Whoa, that's an entire bleep. I did the wrong one. Here it is.
Holy
That's still pretty funny.
Yeah.
So one of these days, y'all, I will be less than amateur. We'll call it professional internet radio once we have sponsors and
At
somebody
some
who
point,
can play.
Once we have to do sponsor reads,
right,
then
we better get on our game.
Internet radio.
But you had said a few weeks ago, I think it might have been our first holy bleep, was that Jimmy Johnson was 2 wins from tying Dale Earnhardt Sr. for wins. He's improved that by 50% now.
That's correct. I mean, we're going to keep talking about this because to me it's a very significant stat. Okay, so Jimmy Johnson is only just now 40 years old. He's been racing in Cup. This is his 14th season. He has 75 wins, one shy of Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s 76 wins, and he has 6 championships, one shy of Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s 7.
Yeah.
In an era where it's as hard to pass anybody as it's ever been, it's as hard to win as it's ever been. Y'all, one day we're going to be talking about Jimmy Johnson being a better race car driver than Dale Earnhardt Sr. And I know that's going to piss people off, and that's okay. I'm not deliberately trolling. I'm just saying, be prepared for that discussion. Like, if you're not prepared for that discussion, you're probably going to walk away from NASCAR, and that's not what we want. We want to embrace these guys like Gordon and Jimmy Johnson because they are our Bobby Allisons and our David Pearsons and our Richard Pettys. Jeff Gordon's going away after this year. Tony Stewart's going away after next year. Tony Stewart is probably our Bill Elliott, but maybe with a little bit more fiery personality. But a couple championships, 50 wins. I mean, a big deal.
I think you make a great point there. Let's enjoy these guys who are there. And I think, to your point, look at your Joey Logano's and your Kyle Busch's and those folks, the people we love to hate. But give them a chance here.
We hate them because they're young and they're brash and they win and they beat our guy. But then when our guy goes away and you pick a new young guy who's younger than these guys and you start following, you realize, man, these guys really are good. I don't know if I necessarily like the way they go about their business, but they're really good, and I have to respect that. It's like, you can hate the Patriots all they want, but you got to respect what they're doing.
Cheating.
That's NASCAR, right?
Yep.
Cheated up
underinflated
cars.
tires.
Well,
and
Gibbs
everything.
brought 4 cheated up cars to.
Oh yeah, and they said
splitter.
no penalties on the splitter, but
I think it was one of those deals like Gordon and Evernham and his T-Rex car was, don't ever do that again.
Right. So let's talk about Phoenix. We're going to Phoenix.
Love Phoenix.
I'm a big fan of Phoenix, not only in NASCAR, but golf and just the place and I had never been there, but
if they could figure out a way for
right
the Phoenix race to be either the Sunday before or the Sunday after the Waste Management Open, I'd go there for a whole dang week.
Absolutely.
That's a bucket list vacation right there for a golf and NASCAR fan.
Mm-hmm. We love all the boring sports.
Yeah. Soccer.
Soccer.
Love soccer.
Yeah. Big time. We've talked about it on the podcast for a long time during the Women's World Cup. That was fun to do, by the way.
I love baseball, too.
From the very beginning of that tournament to the end, we were all about that Women's World Cup.
Right.
That was
really
fun.
did get to kick off our podcast in a great time for American soccer, women's soccer, women's sports. Go ladies. They were just at some Glamour. It was a Glamour magazine event, I think, hosted them. And they all were in their dresses.
Good for them. So Phoenix, let's lay it out there what we have. Stewart-Haas and Penske could be shut out of this thing. It's
right. That was the thing I started looking at when I was potentially making notes. Is like, wait a minute, we could have 2 whole teams shut out of this thing. It's not likely they both will because that's an interesting set of circumstances, but it could happen.
Yeah.
If who's the lowest in points? Carl?
No, Joey.
Right.
You're talking about,
so
Carl's 5th. By the way.
Carl's 5th.
Yep.
So, and then that's where I was trying to go with this.
Okay.
Not necessarily he was last, but if Carl wins the race, and Kyle is the next highest finisher, then there's a duke it out between Kurt and Kevin and the 2 Penskes. Mm-hmm. And forgive me, who's the other driver I'm not thinking of? Truex.
Yep. Which Truex is in 4th right now.
Right. So if Truex has a good day and Carl wins the race, we could be looking at Stewart, Haas, and Penske getting shut out of the finale.
Which is, I think, the NASCAR doomsday scenario at this point, which is the strongest people out there, Harvick, Logano, etc., being shut out of the thing. Keselowski.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. For whatever reason, no belittlement to Brad at all, but I just feel like we're going to start 43 cars on Sunday. It's Joey and Kevin. Now, Kyle would tell you that it's going to be Kevin and Kurt. That's what he said 2 weeks ago. But to me, it's Joey and it's Kevin. Those are the two guys.
Mm-hmm. So let's lay it out there. So Kyle Busch is in second, but he's only 11 points out of fifth. So it feels like he's in a must-do really well situation.
Yes.
If you're Kyle, you're thinking top five.
You're definitely thinking top five,
right? Because one of these other, Jack Holes could win,
right?
So,
right,
you're racing top five. You're not going to take a chance for the win if you don't have to.
Well, the only good thing for the guys that don't have a win is that Jimmy won last week.
Mm-hmm.
Been better if one of them had won, but because Jimmy did, that means there's at least two positions going to go to points.
Right. So we have Carl, 7 points out of fourth. He's in fifth. Truex is 7 into the good. He's just ahead of Carl by 7. Harvick is 10 ahead. Kyle is 11 ahead. That's how close that is. Yeah. And then we have what I consider our must-win guys. Brad is 19 points out of fourth. You're not going to have you're not going to have one guy finish 19 below you and everybody else also do that.
Right.
Kurt is 28 points out of fourth, and Joey is 63 out of fourth. He's a race and a half out of fourth. Obviously must win, but those are my must win guys: Brad, Kurt, and Joey. But then now you're left with 5 people, right? So one of those guys is in a must win. It has to be Carl, just because he's in fifth right now. But then that puts Truex in the 5th position. So now he has to win.
Right. This is what NASCAR wanted. Whether we like it or not doesn't matter anymore. In the moment, this is what NASCAR wanted. You got it's 7 drivers that are bunched up together. 6 because Joey, like you said, he's on the outside looking in for points. There's no way he can point himself in.
Right.
So he does have to win. But yeah, this is exactly what NASCAR wanted. So I mean, yay, we got it this year. I don't think it's sustainable, but I'm glad that it is the way it is this year.
I'm trying to decide. I can't. I get it. I see it. I'm seeing the math and all here, but I hate it that those guys are eliminated completely or whatever. I don't know though. That's tough to say. So that's where we stand. One other footnote. We talked about this in the pre-show. Casey Kane is 7 points out of 16th. So. Outside of the best he can finish is 16th, he is 7 points out of 16th behind Almirola. So I'll be looking for him to try to finish 7 points ahead of Almirola. He looked pretty fast earlier. You were texting me about he was looking not too bad. So maybe we'll be able to get that spot after all. And my always optimist point of view will at least we finished 16th.
I mean, that's I certainly hope that happens. I'm not super sure that I want that to be a possibility. Like, you shouldn't be able to finish 16th if you don't end the regular season in 16th.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
It's like, wait a minute. So one guy's trying to compete for a championship, so he's got one strategy. The guys in 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, they get to change their strategy and try to hit home runs to try to beat the guy who actually qualified to be in the playoffs.
Well, it's weird.
It's sketchy to me.
Like we always say, I don't know if we've said it, but has been said a lot before. It's not stick and ball. It's not 2 teams going up against each other. This is everybody racing at the same time. And so it brings on a different thing in the whole quote-unquote playoff system.
Yeah, for sure. Every time I chase the white rabbit down the hole and get too far, I turn around and come back and go, okay, hold on. This is different. Look at what we do with golf. Okay, golf is oddly the most similar sport to NASCAR, in that all competitors are on the field at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There's not the fear of wrecking and collateral damage that you have in racing, but it is an individual competing against 40 other individuals,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it ends up being that particular weekend. So it is different. We got to treat it different. You can't always compare it to football or baseball.
So let's make some picks. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. There he is. So, picks. The good news for you is that you get to make the pick, and I get to make the other pick. And that's because Joey Logano, who I picked last week, finished. If he wasn't DFL, he might as well have been. And DFL, y'all, is dead freaking last.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead and make your pick. And if you don't pick it, then I might kick you between the legs.
Well, so I think we discussed this earlier. I think I already told Rusty who I was going to pick, and he told me who he probably would pick in that scenario. I'm going to renege because I think it's more compelling because I know who you're going to pick.
Well,
And I'm not going to steal it from you.
Well, no, it's not a matter of steal at this point. Here's the thing. Last week, our finishing positions let us decide who picks this week. Because
That's right.
This week has to be.
Right. Okay, so I think I said a few weeks ago I was going to make a sentimental pick if I could. Was going to hope that the scenarios all played out the right way. The scenarios played out the way I would have wanted them to, except for I didn't pick the winner last week. So I'm not as tied to that sentiment as I was before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick what I think would be the most exciting driver to win.
Okay.
From my perspective, and that's the 41. I'm picking Kurt Busch.
Well, he's throwing me a bone then. So I appreciate the bone. Obviously, at Phoenix, there's one pick that rises to the top above the rest.
If you listen to the Start Your Engines podcast that James Brandt and Mike Hembry and sometimes Gluck do, Mike Hembry, prone to exaggeration. I think he said Kevin had won the last 48 races in a row at Phoenix.
So if you throw me the bone, I'm going to eat it. So I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick just because I had such a horrible
you have to
pick last week that, okay, this week I'll take the bone.
He's not available sure. And you have to.
Now, had Joey won last week, I'm enough of an a-hole that I would have picked Harvick this week also. Just so you know, I like the win.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
So I hope it's more than sentimental for you for Kurt Busch.
Well, after some of the stuff I read today that the little Busch, the shrub, said that when we go to Phoenix, the 4 and the 41 are going to run 1-2 all day. I'm not sure which order they're going to finish in, but they're going to be the fastest.
Well, I hope so. Then, because then we're going to have a ball watching it.
Have a good time.
We're going to text some cuss words like we always do.
You know it.
Well, man, I think that closes us out. Any last words?
Any famous last words?
Famous last words here? I don't think we have a closer today. I'm looking forward to this race, whether it's manufactured or not. My wife is going to be at Disney World, so I'm going to be glued to the television.
Heck yeah, I might have to figure out. I might be sleeping here tomorrow night too.
Plenty.
I do have my work stuff with me. Yeah, well, we usually like to do a little bit about, the other stuff that interests us. But, boy, this has been a rough fall for our Saturday football team.
That's for sure.
Sometimes Thursdays.
And the last few have been rough.
And last couple Sunday football games have been a little rough, too.
So, well, let's just close it out. Watch this. Yeah. We'll just bring we'll bring the music up.
We're all done, y'all.
There's the music. At least we can sing along to that.
So, sing along to it.
Well, as we always say, this is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at PETM Podcast, and same on Periscope and everything else. We got the email too.
Yeah, Gmail, PETMpodcast@gmail.com.
Hit us up on that G-Chat I'm talking about.
I will G-Chat the hell out of you if you G-Chat me.
Once again, I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace at Tailgate Tailgate Mayor.
And I'm Andrew Sherwin at Pregame ENG.
We'll talk to y'all next week.
Thumbs up.